After studying this module, you shall be able to know about the concept of hope and the role it plays in the elderly, identify the different aspects of hope, understand the significance of optimism in the aging process, and learn about the relationship between well-being and aging. Although old age is an inescapable part of our human destiny, defining it has never been an easy task. It has often been put many researchers and even common man in a fix, as there are several definitions and terms which can be used interchangeably. Old age is often seen as a picture of sickness, despair, dependability, disturbance and disappointment. The response of society towards aging and aged is complex. With modernization and urbanization, it has become more and more intricate. Over the years, the values of relationships are deteriorating and it has had a great impact on aging. Elderly are now facing social isolation. The breaking of family systems into nuclear families is affecting the aging population. With modernization, the relatives and children are going to far-off places for work. The status of aged in terms of financial contributor also goes down. Furthermore, if there is physical immovability, it adds on to the stress and despair. Elderly in India were always been taken care of by their family members. It was seen as an integral part of the fundamental social and cultural values of the Indian value system. However, due to urbanization, modernization and the influence of the Western culture, children are opting for nuclear families. With most of the women joining the workforce, they find it difficult to take care of the elderly in the families, looking upon them as a burden. Many a times, they are employed away from their native places and the elderly are left alone to fend for themselves. Most of the times, their basic needs are not met and in some cases, they face abuse and exploitation. Many surveys have been conducted to see the state of the elderly in India. It has been found that 1 out of every 6 elderly persons does not receive proper nutrition, 1 out of every 3 persons does not receive the necessary medical attention, and 1 out of 2 elderly persons does not receive the respect and attention due to them. They end up feeling unwanted and marginalized. The Indian government has taken several initiatives to deal with the issue of the increasing number of the grey population. The government recognizes the rights of the elderly as their entitlements. Elderly rights are one of the fundamental rights in India. The International Day of the Elderly is observed on 1st of October. Although there is a provision in the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 under which parents can claim maintenance from their children, but the procedure is long and expensive. It is needed that simple, inexpensive and speedy provisions may be made to claim maintenance by the suffering parents. Additionally, the elderly are not aware of all the rights available to them. The elder illiteracy regarding their rights is directly related to the infringement of their rights. Hope and aging. Hope plays a significant role in the literature of positive psychology. It has been identified as strength of the person and as a cognition-oriented concept of the field of positive psychology. Hope is seen by Snyder as a belief in one's own capacity to initiate and sustain action and achieve, and a belief in one's ability to generate routes, strategies and pathways in thinking about and moving towards one's goals. He sees people high in hope as having several goals, perceiving them as challenges, more success in achieving these goals, being happier and less distressed, with better coping skills, experiencing quicker recovery from physical problems and less burnout at work. Model of hope. The common theme in literature is that hope involves the perception that one's goal can be achieved. Snyder in 1994 mentioned two components: the routes to reach their goals and the motivation to use those routes. He named these components as pathways and agency. Goals. The main tenet of the hope theory is that human behavior is goal-directed. Goals are the mental targets that guide human actions. There are two basic types of goals: approach goals, that is, getting into the best university, and avoidance goals, example, not getting sick. Pathways. Pathways are thinking processes that entail recognizing the person's ability to generate routes connecting the present to the imagined future. The individual perceives that one can make at least one workable route to the desired goal. The production of multiple pathways is important when encountering barriers to goal pursuits. Research has shown that people with high hope are much better at generating alternative pathways to goals. Agency. Agency is the motivational component in hope theory, and it is the perceived ability to use pathways to reach desired goals. Agency thinking includes the self-referential thoughts about the ability to start and maintain movement along a pathway. It involves self-statements such as, "I can do this." Agency thinking refers to the intention to act rather than simply perceiving the ability to do so. Although research has shown that agency and self-efficacy are related, agency predicts unique variance in well-being above and beyond self-efficacy. According to Snyder's theory, hopeful thinking requires both perceived ability to generate routes to a goal and perceived ability to use those routes. It is theorized that the relationship between pathways and agency thinking is transactional. Goal. The temporal sequence of goal-directed thought involves three phases that influence goal pursuit: an individual's learning history, the present phase, and the event sequence phase. Pathways thinking develop when infants begin to make associations between co-occurring events. The process of pathways and agency thinking are accompanied by emotional sets or moods that are based on the individual's experience with previous goal pursuits. Next is the prevent phase of a particular goal pursuit. During this phase, an individual assesses the outcome of the current goal. If the goals seem to be important enough, the individual moves on to the event sequence phase. As an individual begins to pursue a goal, agency and pathways thinking repeatedly interact with appraise outcome value, allowing the individual to continuously monitor the outcome value of the goal pursuit in the context of the pathways available and the agency required to enact the available pathways. The event sequence phase of goal pursuit, goal-specific pathways, and agency thought alternate and summate. Once a particular goal pursuit is completed, the individual's appraisal of the process, success or failure, and the resultant emotions, positive or negative, rotate back to influence subsequent perceptions of pathways and agency capabilities for goals in that particular domain and in general. Repeated failures can lead to loss of hope. A person may encounter stressors on the way to goal pursuit. According to the hope theory, a stressor is defined as any impediment that could jeopardize a goal pursuit. The stressor generates emotions that influence pathways and agency thoughts related to the goal pursuit at that particular time. The resultant emotions are a result of the appraisal of the stressor. Another source of emotional influence in goal pursuit is the surprise event. A surprise event is one that occurs outside the context of the ongoing goal pursuit and can be positive or negative. The emotions generated by the event affect the individual's agency thinking, usually by increasing or decreasing motivation. This agency is attached to a particular goal and pathways that are appropriate to the situation. The hope model consists of both feed-forward, that is thoughts, and feedback mechanisms, that is emotions, that influence a person's success in any given goal pursuit. Hope and physical health. One of the important goals in our lives is being physically healthy, and hopeful thinking has an impact on physical health. Snyder et al. In 2000 articulated the theoretical implications of hope in two domains of health-related goal pursuits. One, avoiding future health problems, that is primary prevention, and second, coping with existent health problems, that is secondary prevention. Snyder and his colleagues theorized that higher levels of hope would correspond with better ability to attend to and facilitate prevention efforts. Related to this hypothesis, a study conducted by Irving et al. In 1998 found that high hope women performed better than low hope women on a cancer fact test, even when controlling for previous academic performance and prior contact with others. In addition, the high hope women reported having stronger intentions to engage in cancer prevention activities than low hope women. Another study found that high hope participants reported engaging in more physical exercise, an activity that helps against illness and disease. In addition to preventive behavior, hope is likely to be inversely related to deliberate efforts to harm, example, suicide, self-injury, or violence towards others, as these activities are incompatible with physical health goals. In another study, it was found out that hospital patients who engaged in parasuicidal behaviors reported having lower hope than matched to control patients. Regardless of one's efforts preventing illness, people do fall ill. Hope can emerge as an important factor in coping with and recovering from illness, that is secondary prevention. Recent research has shown higher levels of hope to be associated with benefits in coping with burn injuries, spinal cord injuries, arthritis, etc. Psychologists relate in part to the ability of high hope individuals to cope with pain associated with disease process. Another study showed that higher levels of hope corresponded with greater treatment adherence in children with asthma. In similar terms, as in the case with physical health, mental health can be explained in two basic domains. First, maintaining psychological adjustment or preventing psychopathology, and second, recovering from psychopathology. Hope may lead to psychological adjustment partly through influence of successful goal pursuits on affectivity. Hope facilitates goal pursuits, thus higher levels of hope may lead to optimal patterns of affectivity. There are various mechanisms which may work in this regard. One of them is that hope is purported to influence psychological adjustment through its influence on how people appraise and cope with stressors or goal obstacles. People high in hope are more likely to find benefits in coping with their ongoing stressors. People with high hope perceive that their hope will protect them against future stressors, and this yields to higher sense of confidence and higher sense of self-efficacy, resulting in more positive outlook in life. Hope and interpersonal relationship. Hopeful thinking is also crucial in helping individuals to form social ties. Connecting with other people is a fundamental human goal because goal pursuits almost always occur within the context of social relationships. The extent to which people are interested in connecting with others is the extent to which they are concerned about others' perception of them. Thus, the tendency to present oneself to others in a positive light can be thought of as adaptive and prosocial. People with high level of hope are most likely to form close connections with other people. They are not only interested in their own goals, but also in goals of the other people. Research has shown that elderly persons with high hope perceive more social support, more social competence, and experience the sense of connectivity with others around them. Optimism. Optimism involves positive, relatively stable, favorable expectations and outcomes for the future. It is associated with making positive cognitive appraisals of situations, resulting in making active, engaged coping efforts to deal with stress, making the best of whatever is encountered. For example, it was stated that there is a strong relationship between being optimistic and good physical health. Role of optimism in physical health. Optimism is one of the most relevant personality traits that play an important role in an individual's physical health, and more so in the case of elderly persons. Numerous research studies have shown that optimism is related to higher protection in the face of disease and to higher life expectancy. Peterson, Seligman and Valiant in 1998 carried out an analysis of personal writings on situations experienced during World War II by a group of 99 Harvard University graduates. Over 30 years later, the optimists had better health and showed less mortality than the pessimists. Maruta, Colligan, Melancholic and Efford in 2000 found similar results in a sample with more than 700 general medicine patients who had been assessed on an optimism scale. 30 years later, it was seen that not only did optimists live longer than the rest of the participants, but their survival rate was significantly higher than the one expected on the basis of their social and demographic characteristics, namely age, sex, year of birth. Furthermore, they had better physical and mental health, which was assessed by means of the SF36, that is the short form 36 health survey questionnaire, given in the Know More section of this module. The influence of optimism can affect health through several paths. Firstly, optimism, hope, and positive expectations are elements that can protect health in challenging situations by means of direct paths. For example, body systems of most optimistic people generate better immune competence responses than those of the pessimist ones, taking as an indicator the activity of NK cells, which are the natural killers. In general terms, optimism also seems to be related to a better state of the immune system. Kempensiegel, Rodin, Seligman and Dwyer in 1991 showed the relationship between an optimist thinking style and better immune system responses in a group of 62 to 87-year-old healthy people. Optimists' benefits were reflected in a lower presence of T8 suppressor cells. Optimism is associated to better mood, greater NK cells, cytotoxic activity, and greater number of T helper cells. Other than its influence on the immune system, optimism also seems to prevent diseases in two basic systems for survival, namely the respiratory and circulatory systems. In an 8-year-old prospective study, Kubzanski and her collaborators examined the effects of optimism on lung performance in a group of 670 men between 45 and 89 years old. Those with more optimistic attributional style had greater lung performance levels and slower decline of this function irrespective of smoking. An additional study observed that after a 10-year follow-up period, the optimists had half the risk of suffering from coronary heart disease than those with high levels of pessimism. Secondly, a tendency towards optimism can affect health through the behavior manifested in the face of life problems in general and health problems in particular. Such behavior can prevent chronic stress and the resultant complication of physical health and psychological problems. Optimism encourages active strategies to cope with stress and health problems, which is related to problem-solving behaviors, self-care and recovery plans. In a study conducted by Scheer and his collaborators in 1989 with a group of patients undergoing coronary bypass, the most optimistic ones assessed before the surgical intervention not only made more active rehabilitation plans but showed better recovery and life quality 6 months later in connection with resuming work and free time social activities. Optimism and other cognitive functions. Optimism and pessimism are broad versions of confidence or doubt pertaining to most situations in life. Thus, optimists would tend to be more confident and persistent in the face of challenges. The pessimists, on the other hand, would be doubtful and hesitant in these same situations. These differences in how people see adversities have implications for ways people cope with stress. One implication is on how people feel when facing problems. When people face difficulties, their emotions may range from excitement and eagerness to anger, anxiety, and depression. The balance among feelings relates to variations in optimism experienced by the person. Optimists expect good outcomes even when things are difficult. Pessimists, on the other hand, expect bad outcomes which yield more negative feelings such as anxiety, anger, sadness, or despair. Scheer and Carver in 1985 conceptualized optimism with respect to the favorability of a person's generalized outcome expectancies, and these are referred to as dispositional optimism. The literature reveals that the people who keep positive expectations for the future give more adaptive responses when they experience adverse and difficult life events. Scheer and Carver in 1992 discussed the importance of dispositional optimism, a global expectation that good things will be plentiful in the future and bad things scare. Scheer and Carver placed an emphasis on goal setting, defined as desirable values, and continued actions to attain them. Alternatively, Buchanan and Seligman in 1995 emphasized explanatory style, that is, an individual's characteristic explanatory style, how he or she explains bad events. Optimists are described as those who explain bad events as caused by factors external to themselves with specific changeable causes. Pessimists are described as those who favor personal, internally attributed, long-lasting, all-pervasive causes for bad events. Seligman's early work on the learned helplessness model proposed briefly that after experiencing uncontrollable events, people can become helpless, passive and unresponsive with a learned general expectancy that future outcomes would be unrelated to any actions taken by them, often accompanied by failure, depression and illness. Well-being of the senior citizens. Relationship between well-being, coping strategies and personal growth is fast being recognized as an important aspect. Improving the psychological well-being of people in general and the elderly in specific is becoming a focus of debate. Psychological well-being and health, both mental and physical, have been found to be closely related, and this link becomes more important as the person ages. With increase in life expectancy, the need for higher well-being in older ages has gained importance. Studies of older people suggest that the psychological well-being is influenced by many factors like material and financial conditions, social and family relationships, and physical health of the person. All these aspects change with age. Growing body of research indicates that psychological well-being may actually be a protective factor for physical health as well as reducing the risk of chronic ailments. To measure psychological well-being, at least 3 approaches can be seen, each focusing on a different approach. First, life evaluation. Second, hedonic well-being. And third, eudaimonic well-being. Life evaluation refers to individuals' thoughts about the quality of their lives and their overall life satisfaction. Hedonic well-being refers to their experienced everyday feelings and moods like sadness, happiness, and anger. These feelings are related as negative or positive to get an accurate estimate of the individual's well-being. Eudaimonic well-being focuses on the judgment about meaning and purpose of one's life. Many findings suggest that the older population, although less physically able and less productive than the younger population, may actually be more satisfied with their lives and experience less stress and anxiety. However, the research also indicates that this pattern of well-being is not a universal pattern. Old age has never been easy to define despite being an inescapable part of human life. In India, the elderly have usually been cared for by their family members. This is one of the fundamental social values of the Indian value system. However, modernization and influence of the Western culture has made this difficult for both the children as well as the parents. Many times, the children move to distant places for education or for employment, and the elderly are left alone to fend for themselves. Surveys have found that 1 in every 6 elderly persons does not get proper nutrition. They also do not receive proper and necessary medical attention. Hope has played an important role in the literature of positive psychology. It has been identified as an important strength of the person. The common theme in literature is that hope involves the perception that one's goals can be achieved. According to Snyder, there are 2 components to achieving a goal. The routes to reach the goal, referred to as pathways, and the motivation to use these routes, referred to as agency. Hope has been found to be an important component of good physical health. It has been theorized that higher levels of hope would result in better ability to facilitate good health. Hope has also been found to be an important factor in coping with and recovering from an illness when the person does fall ill. Similarly, hope can also be seen as an important component of mental health. Mental health can be explained in two basic domains. First, maintaining psychological adjustment and preventing psychopathology, and second, recovering from psychopathology. Hope is also crucial in helping individuals form interpersonal relationships. Elderly persons with high level of hope are most likely to form close connections with other people, perceive more social support, and experience a sense of connectivity with others around them. Optimism is associated with making positive cognitive appraisals of situations and making active coping efforts to deal with stress. Many research studies have shown that optimism is related to higher protection in the face of disease and to higher life expectancy. Optimism has also been found to be associated with other cognitive function. Optimists tend to be confident and persistent in the face of challenges. Optimistic people have been found to cope well with both controllable and uncontrollable events, as they are able to make use of appropriate coping strategies. Relationship between well-being, coping strategies, and personal growth is fast being recognized as an important aspect. Psychological well-being and health, both mental and physical, have been found to be closely related, and this link becomes even more important as the person ages. However, it needs to be recognized that research on relationship between psychological well-being and health at older ages is at an early stage.